welcome everybody to Entrepreneurship Seminar this week. Sorry I wasn't here last week. I freaked out Sarah. She thought I got fired again. I was in California last week, so sorry about that. I heard Shane Ball was great. I had a lot of good feedback on Shane, and Stay Where. What'd you guys think? Did you like Shane? Some head nods. Great. Well, I'm really excited for our panel of artists today. We've never done anything like this, so this will be a fun learning experience, and I'm really grateful that they are sharing their time with us so generously today. None of them are getting paid to do this. They're all volunteering to be here, so we really appreciate that. So really quick, just so as a reminder, if you guys want to win some prizes or up to $2,000 in cash, enter Opportunity Quest. The deadline is next Friday, November 1st. I'll write the website up here on the board so you can take a picture of that. Or you can go to the Snow Business homepage, just type Snow College Business, click on the Opportunity Quest link there from the business homepage, and you can get there. Also, as a reminder, we have our Bootstrap Your Business pitch competition tomorrow night. The deadline for that to apply closed last night, so you can't apply anymore, but you're welcome to come support it as audience members. It's tomorrow night, 5:30 p.m. in the GSC. And a reminder on this one, the audience gets to vote for what they think the best ideas are. You actually get $500 in play money that you get to go invest in whichever businesses you think are the best. And then what we do is we count up whoever gets the most money. They're the winners, and they actually get real money. So the audience truly decides who wins that pitch competition. So come support that tomorrow, 5:30 in the GSC, and then get your Opportunity Quest applications in before next Friday. It's going to be great. And if you want, you can email me, set up a time to come talk to me one-on-one about your business ideas. Was there a question? 5:30 tomorrow, yeah. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I'll invite you guys to come up and grab a seat, and we'll just go down the list here. So first up, we've got John Clark. John, you want to raise your hand? This is John. How many of you actually, a lot of you are probably not aware that you use one of John's designs. Any of you guys have a skier license plate, skier Utah license plate on your car? John designed that, the most recent skier license plate, so pretty cool. So John graduated from Utah State University with a BFA in 1994. He's an artist and author with an interest in tourism and automobile history. He and his wife, Melissa, are the authors of Opening Zion, a book on Zion National Park's first official tourists. He's also written a series on automobile history in Utah called Motor Tales. John is an award-winning printmaking artist whose work has been displayed in numerous juried art shows. Exhibitions include the 89th Annual Utah Spring Salon in 2013, where he received an Award of Merit, and the pictured close to home, our own spectacular national park show at the St. George Art Museum in 2016. His passion for tourism history led to the creation of a series of vintage-style screen-printed posters that highlight the golden age of motor travel in Western national parks. John also designed Utah's newest ski-themed license plate. So welcome, John Clark. Okay, next to John, we have Doug Fryer, with sporting the goatee. Yeah, we have any family members here? Doug? We had a woo-woo. We had a shout-out. Oh, there's Rose, okay.
I didn't see Rose there.
Welcome. So Doug Fryer was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, and raised in Illinois and California. In 1998, he received a BFA in illustration from Brigham Young University in Provo, and later returned to BYU for further study towards a Master's of Fine Art in Painting and Drawing, completing the degree in 1995. Doug has taught fine art and illustration at several universities and art schools, including BYU, the University of Hartford in Connecticut, and at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. Doug has been invited to lecture and teach workshops in many locations in the United States and Europe, He's received numerous commissions to complete large murals for public and private locations. Doug is currently represented by Meyer Gallery, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Illume Gallery, St. George, Utah. His paintings are in numerous public and private collections in North America and Europe. His personal works are images of places, objects, and people that have simple yet profound significance to him. So please welcome Doug Fryer. Okay, next to Doug, we have Joe Bennion. Joe, do you want to raise your hand? That's Joe. Yes. Joseph Bennion is a native of Utah. For the past 43 years, he has lived and worked in Spring City, Utah, with his wife, Lee Udall Bennion, who is a painter. And we were hoping we could get Lee today, too. The real heart and soul. No, just kidding. But she was busy, so she's also a very accomplished artist herself. Joseph attended Tuscarora Pottery School and Brigham Young University, where he earned a master's in fine arts and ceramics. He's lectured and taught workshops in Japan, Europe, Canada, Jamaica, and throughout the United States. His work, which is widely published, appears in numerous private and public collections in the U.S. and abroad. He currently operates Horseshoe Mountain Pottery and works seasonally as a Grand Canyon river guide. So please welcome Joe Bennion. And last up, we have Steve Weller. Did anyone here go to Ephraim Middle School and have Steve as a teacher? Yes, look at that. We have some of your old students, Steve. So Steve Weller is a middle school English teacher and college instructor with a love for laughter. When he's not teaching classes and wrestling with his kids, he finds time for the occasional mural or caricature sketch. He's been drawing completely relatable, sometimes painfully so, middle school comic strips on his classroom board since he first started teaching 11 years ago. With 4 self-published books, regular published space in newspapers, multiple features on national education websites, and nearly 20,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram, maybe it's time to really get serious with this whole art thing. So welcome, Steve Weller. Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to them, and I'll give you guys the clicker, and then you can click through your slides here by pushing this button. So that button right there advances. And I just have to say, has anyone's parents here ever told you, you can't make money with art? Come on, you got to grow up and get a real job, right? Well, these guys are all here to tell us something differently. Especially here locally, the arts has a huge impact on our economy in San Pete County. There's a ton of artists that live here, work here, make their livelihoods here. So we're really excited that they would spend some time with us. So John, why don't you take it away?
All right, thanks, Russ. So it's the only picture I could find in short notice. No, really, our photographer, I actually work as a graphic designer also here at the college in the marketing department, and our photographer took that picture. He was just testing his camera. It's nice though, right? Okay, so I actually run my own business called Scenic Highways, and what I do is I'm a souvenir supplier, technically. What that means is that I create illustrations, different products based on art, and then these products are then sold in national park gift shops, state parks, all over the country. And so this right here is an example of 2 calendars that we designed for next year. And so all of the illustration work that I do is kind of a vintage style, travel themed kind of art. And so I created these to sell in a variety of parks. The one on the left is there's 12 national parks represented in the west, and then the one on the right is parks that are in Utah, Colorado, Arizona, in the southwest. So this is an example of some of the different pieces that were created. We put this art on postcards, posters, fridge magnets, stickers, and as you saw before, calendars. And so each one of these is designed specifically for the park. I generally will travel to each of the parks and do my own research, take my own photography, get some information. I try to incorporate what I find into each one. Not only the photographs that I use as reference to draw from, but also like in the example of Canyonlands here, it's kind of a four-wheel drive park. There's a lot of jeeping and things in the area, and so I chose a vehicle that represents that culture in Canyonlands. So here's a few more here from the region: Zion, Great Salt Lake, Capitol Reef, and Grand Canyon. And again, they all have, there's also some kind of historical aspect that usually appears in them. Like in Zion, the tunnel was dedicated in 1930, and so the vehicle is a 1930 model car. Whereas on the right, the Grand Canyon North Rim is illustrating the first visitor to the North Rim in 1909 who arrived in it's a Pierce Arrow, I think. Anyway, so I try to incorporate also history and different things like that into this work to give it a little more depth and interest. These are examples of postcard sets, so we don't just have one individual product. We'll package some together, like in sticker packs or in this case, postcard packs. And each of them is thematic for the region that it's developed for. So, for example, in the left, these are all parks that you would find in the Black Hills of South Dakota and just in that region. So Devil's Tower is the only one on there that's not in South Dakota. It's in Wyoming, but it's on the far eastern side of the state and is close by to these others. And same with the center, Pacific Parkways. So you'd find all of these parks in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And then the one on the far right is 12 parks that were part of what was called the National Park-to-Park Highway, which was a scheme about 100 years ago to connect all the parks via one big major highway, scenic highway, that would connect all the parks of the West. So that's pretty much it for me. I'll pass on the microphone to our next. Yes, that's what I was looking at. Thank you for the word. Thanks.
I have to add that John works here in our marketing department at Snow College. So he's an example of a graphic designer. He's got a full-time job, but also doing art, selling it through national parks. So.
Oh, that's not me.
Oh, here, let's. Yeah, sorry.
I wish that we were younger.
Let's skip to yours. There we go. There's Doug.
Okay. The way I wanted to sort of direct my remarks was just to give you a little bit of history behind how someone can have dreams and sort of goals when they're young, and how to make those dreams into a business. I currently work as a fine artist, but that isn't how I started. When I was growing up, I just wanted to be an artist. I didn't know if what that meant. If it was selling your work as selling originals, or if that was making an image that would go on a book cover. I didn't know the difference. But when I got to college, I had to make the decision: am I going to be a commercial artist, or am I going to be a fine artist? I decided to study to become a commercial artist, an illustrator. So I got a degree in illustration, which is basically making pictures that go into print. And those images can go along with text, like say in a magazine article, or they can advertise a product, or advertise a service, those kinds of things. Well, I did that for several years, and I decided, what I really want to do is just make my own paintings, and see if I can maybe find a way to sell those and make a living. So I went back to school. I decided, I wanted to I wanted to maybe teach also, but I wanted to learn how to become a fine artist. So I went back and I got a master's degree in painting. And then over the course of the next 10 years, I made the transition from being a commercial artist to a fine artist. So that whole time I was making that transition, I was doing book covers. A lot of you girls particularly probably grew up with an American Girl doll. Anyone have an American Girl doll? Right. I did a lot of work for the Pleasant Company, which produced all of the work for American Girl doll, all their history mysteries and things like that. I did a bunch of book covers, but I also did work that went into annual reports, like for Humana or for Southern California Edison. So I did images that would go into their literature. Insurance companies, investment companies, magazines, just a wide variety of things. I sort of advertised myself through my agent as sort of an illustration studio. So I had a lot of different kinds of looks to what I did. But what I really wanted to do was make paintings that were more personal, more interpretive, and then just sell those originals. That's what I started to do. Well, in order to do that, you have to kind of have two different hats, right? As you do your work. As an artist, Russ and I were talking on the phone just briefly the other night that so often as we create a business, we want to find out what our target audience is, who is our market. And then we try to gear our product or our service towards what the market is needing or demanding or wants or what we imagine it to be. Well, as an artist, you kind of reverse that a little bit. As a fine artist anyway, what you do is you create your product or your service for yourself, and then you go out and see who your audience might be. It's a little bit of a reversal, right? As opposed to me saying, what kind of art sells? I'm going to do that kind of art, the kind that sells. I have to take a step back and say, what do I really want to do? What do I dream about? What are my motives? What are all the things that I want to do with the hours that are given me in my day, and do that thing? And if I do that well, if I do it beautifully, if I craft it well, then all I need to do now, right, is to find out who my audience is. They appear as they see the work, and I've made a living out of that. I've shown my work in all parts of the country. My work's collected all over the country, and like I said, in Europe. And I haven't had too many problems finding that audience. It's again, if I were to reverse that and say, well, I see in the galleries that a lot of work like this sells, and if I want to sell, I better do work like that. Or I say, well, these 3 or 4 paintings sold so fast that I better do more like that. All of a sudden, as an artist, I've made it so that I'm only creating inventory to sell, and the work suffers. Let me just, if I can just take a minute, let me tell you a story. I taught a class once at BYU. And I introduced the class, and we had a great discussion in this first day of class. We talked about motives for doing the work we do. How do we have personal expression in what we do? How do we have a personal vision in what we do in order to excel and become unique and become desired in the marketplace because we are unique, right? Well, after about 40 minutes of discussion, I had this student raise his hand and he said, I don't want to know any of that. Just tell me what I need to do to make money. And I'm like, just what we talked about the last 40 minutes. Do that, and it will happen. But another brief anecdote. When I was in school, we had a guy from Ogilvy Mather, great, really big advertising agency in New York. This guy was over the campaign of the decade, the American Express ad campaign in the 1980s. I mean, it was just huge, huge campaign. He was on a search for like a year, trying to find someone to fill a position as creative director at the advertising agency. He couldn't find, after a year, he couldn't find someone to fill this position. It paid $500,000 a year. This was in 1987. He couldn't find anyone. And I remember what he said. He said, the problem is, I couldn't find anyone to fit that position at the very top. All I could find was all of these people kind of in the halfway level. I couldn't find anyone who excelled, who was different, who was unique. And he said, all of the competition is down here. And up on top is where there's just no competition. You just simply have to get to that point where you excel. So let me just flip through. This is what I do now. I do a lot of paintings that are just unique, one of a kind items. I do them for me, and then I find my audience. And that's it.
I'm up. Oh, the clicker. Yeah, we need the clicker. I have 2 power objects now. That's pretty good. All right, I'm just going to run you through. These are all relatively recent work. I just put them up there to give you a sense of what I do. I make pots that are utilitarian. I make pots that are designed to work between the hand and the table and the mouth. Fairly intimate space. That's it. Okay, good. You can hold that for me. Thank you. Okay, I started out, I had like 4 or 5 college majors. I spent 12 years as an undergraduate. I took a pottery class early on and got an F, E-F-F, and walked out of the class. I mean, after 3 weeks, I still couldn't center the clay. My head wasn't there. My heart wasn't there. I was taking a pottery class because I had cousins who were potters, and I thought they were really cool, and being cool was something important to me at 19. At 19 also, I was part of the dominant culture here in Utah, i.e. LDS, and I served a mission in Canada in 1971. Came home from that experience having changed some of my attitudes about things. Spent most of the time living on very small rural communities and Indian reservations, and got a perspective that really changed how I viewed the world. I came back and I took that pottery class again, not because I was interested in being cool or being a potter, but because I needed to get the F off my transcript. Move forward, have a good GPA. I got a B+, I was done. I spent the summer in Northern California working as a choker setter on a high lead logging operation, very dangerous work. Wound up only working about 2 or 3 days a week because the Sierra Club was really ramping up its campaign to shut down clear cutting, which is the taking of virgin old growth forests and clear cutting them, taking everything down and then planting tree farms in their place. At the time I was just kind of PO'd because I wasn't getting the $7.50 an hour, which by the way in 1974 was a chunk of change. But I met a couple of hippie potters down at Pebble Beach outside of Crescent City and wandered into their shop and said, "Hi, I'm Joe Bennion from BYU, and I took a ceramics class. Can I hang out?" And they, after they picked themselves up off the floor from laughing their butts off, they said, "Sure, Joe Bennion from BRU. Here, mix some clay. Here, scrape some kill shelves. Here, organize this crap." And I observed that what they did was they'd get up in the morning and they'd go make pots till about 1 o'clock, have a quick lunch, put on wetsuits, and go surfing in the Pacific Ocean. Come back, check the pots. put plastic on them, whatever, and then they went to a roadhouse on Highway 1 and played blues all night. And I thought, what's wrong with this picture? And on Sundays, they would have this big feed fest at their studio where they would trade pottery for fish and fry up all the fish, and everybody in the county showed up with potluck. And it was like, okay, pottery. I'm going to be a potter after all. And I went back to BYU, took a lot of pottery classes, but it was always on the side of what I was majoring in: developmental psychology, early childhood education, other majors. Photography, I studied for a while. When I met my wife and married her, she said, look at you. You're spending all your time, all your spare time making pots because you love it. And then you're doing what you think you should be doing in school. You think you should be a school teacher. You think, And she said, when you come back from student teaching, you're not a very fun person to be around. When you come back from making pottery, you remind me of the guy I fell in love with. That's who I want to be married to. Would you change your major one more time for me? And I got a degree in ceramics, finally. I'm going to make this long story short. We moved to Spring City. I set up a pottery shop. We raised 3 beautiful daughters. But there was no master plan. There was no, this is the next, here's how, we didn't have a 5-year plan. It was just like, okay, we've come to a fork. Let's think about it and go with what feels right. And the pervading motivation was not how can we make money, but how can we have this life that we want to live. And if I had something to say to you guys, as young aspiring entrepreneurs, find out what it is you really love, and then figure out how to make that work. Doug has kind of laid a foundation for that. Paint what you really love, and then find the market for it. When I got my MFA, I was almost immediately hired to teach a 2-week workshop at Pewabic Pottery in Detroit, which is a very prestigious old pottery that has become a nonprofit. And after the 2-week workshop, it was my first time ever teaching a workshop, the director took me to breakfast and we talked, and she says, Joe, your work is wonderful. You need to learn to pace yourself. You put too much into this. But stick to your guns. Make this work. Make the work that's coming out of your heart, and you will find your niche. You will find where you can sell the work. Now, you all had my newsletter passed around. I thought that having my work in lots of galleries coast to coast was going to work. I thought that going to a lot of really prestigious art shows and craft fairs was going to work. Little did I know that the place where my work would sell the best and most consistently is the little dusty, cluttered shop on Main Street in Spring City where I make that stuff. I consider the greatest accomplishment of my career that I can sell everything I sell everything I can comfortably make out of that little shop. I don't know how that works, but I have a hard time keeping inventory. Now, it says in the newsletter, and it was mentioned in the intro, that I also work as a Grand Canyon River guide. That is not something I do because I need extra money. That's something I do because I got to get down there and be on that river. I'm 2 weeks home from a trip that I just completed. It was a 3-week trip. I'm still just starting to get the sand beaten out of all the nooks and crannies and creases in my psyche. And I started making pots 2 days ago. And I love making pots, but I really find my juju on the river. I find my recharge there, and that's something I just need to do. Let me just read one thing to you. When I was starting to come of age as an adult and an artist, sometime in the early 80s, so let's call it I was 30 years old. Are most of us 30 already? Are any of us? Okay. There was a PBS series called The Power of Myth that featured the mythologist Joseph Campbell being interviewed by Bill Moyer. And this is something that came out of that discussion. It was an 8-hour conversation they held over many weeks. Joseph Campbell, after studying all the great mythologies of the world, boiled it down to a few sentences. He said, what they're all trying to say is follow your bliss. If you do your bliss, if you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you. And the life you ought to be living is the one you are living. When you can see that, you begin to meet people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open doors for you. I say, follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open. Where you didn't know there was going to be a door. If you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that wouldn't have opened for anyone else. And there's a few other quotes from here that I think are important that I pulled from that series. Follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls. The privilege of your lifetime is being who you are. Be true to who you are. Find out who you are. And I don't know how you'll do that. For me, it came sitting by a river. Thank you.
All right. I guess I'm last and least. I'm going to stand up because I've been sitting too long. I see some of you guys are nodding off. Let's all wake up. Hey. I'd like to ask, how many of you are in this class because you want to be an artist? A couple people. All right. So I'm going to direct my comments mostly towards you guys, but for everyone else, just pay attention. I am not a full-time artist. I'm a full-time teacher. And so a lot of the sage advice that you've been hearing today, that's great. Okay, follow your passion, follow your dreams. Okay, that's what we've been learning. I took the safer route, and I got a job as a full-time teacher, and I do art on the side. Okay? A lot of you that are in this entrepreneurship class, you're going to find that sometimes the side jobs are the most meaningful jobs, and you go to your 9 to 5, or your 7 to 3 job because you have to put the bread on the table. Okay, I've been a teacher for 11 or 12 years, and I paint murals here in the community, and I also draw comics. So I'm going to show a few things. Up at the top, I've got a painting that was in Salt Lake City at a credit recovery center. They wanted a game room, so they asked me to paint Mario and Luigi. Up top in the middle is Gunnison Elementary School. They wanted superhero fruits and vegetables, and giant fruits and vegetables, and bulldogs doing fun activities. Over here we've got Ephraim Elementary School. They wanted dinosaurs and giant vegetables because those are both terrifying things for kids, right? The first mural that I painted, though, in the community was the bowling alley. If you've been in the bowling alley, I painted that 10 years ago, and that was the first time that I had done anything major with painting. I'd painted my bedroom when I was 15 because I was bored and I didn't have anything to do. And so when I moved here to Ephraim, I went into the bowling alley because I saw that they were doing some renovation, and there was a blue wall with these jagged mountains and this graffiti-style painting that was just kind of half done, and nothing was going on. So I asked the manager, what the heck is going on? Well, we hired a bunch of troubled youth to paint on the sides of the wall, but then they all got in trouble and got taken away. So now there's just this wall. I was like, well, I paint murals. All right, well, show me an idea. And he told me what he wanted. He wanted representations of the county. He wanted snow-capped lanes and something to do with Highway 89. So I drew up a design, and I said, here's what I can do for you. And I incorporated all of the high schools and the college and the community because that's what really represents the county. He said he loved it. It took me about 3 weeks to paint that. And after that, people started coming and saying, hey, I like that. Who's the guy that did that? Well, here's his name and number. Okay. And so what happened after that was I was asked to do paintings in schools, in public buildings, in people's houses. And I don't advertise, but the word of mouth gets you noticed. Okay? Especially in a small town and a small community where if you find a niche, people will come to you. But you have to be good. You have to be versatile. If you take a look at that, that's a lot of cartoon stuff. That bottom one was Manti Elementary School. Let's see. So I recently completed one at Gunnison. Gunnison High. I've got one lined up for Manti High School over Christmas break. So the only thing that I need left is Gunnison Middle School, and then I'll have a mural in every single school in the district. Kind of fun. Up top, this is my daughter's dance studio. What I did there was I painted this, and in exchange, my two daughters didn't have to have dance. They didn't have to pay for dance lessons for a year. It was a pretty nice thing. I got it done in a couple days, and then they got a free year's worth of dance lessons, which works out. So don't be afraid to make trades, okay? Trade for trade, service for service, okay? It's not always about the money. The one down there, the castle one, that one is in the eye center of Ephraim. There's some hidden pictures that they asked me to do that one. That was kind of fun. This Norwegian style, that's in someone's playroom, and they said, "Here's what we want." The one up at the top was another video game room. If you can see, I've done a lot of cartoon style, but I've also done kind of realistic ones. There's a painting that I sent that didn't get included in here, but it was a plane turbine, and it was photorealism. It looked just like a painting, okay? So as a painter, you've got to be able to have a lot of different styles because people will ask you to do different things. And so if you're looking to make money, sometimes you have to diversify. But, oh, wait, nope. I did a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Is that one yours? Okay. I did the one in the mailroom. I did an Incredible Hulk, did some canvas work, did a giant basketball, that was kind of fun. I did a Disney playroom. But as you can see, the styles are really different because that's just what people wanted. And so sometimes when you're starting up a business, you have to look to your customer and say, what do you want? And I will do that, okay? So that's exactly the opposite advice that everyone else up here told you, but it works for me, okay? But the other thing that I like to do is I like to draw comics. I got started drawing comics right here at Snow College when I was a freshman at college working for the Snowdrift. When I was in high school, I started drawing cartoons, and I showed them to my English teacher, and she said, these are great, but you'll never go anywhere with this. So my teacher shot me down, right? So when I came to Snow College, I talked to the newspaper advisor and said, hey, can I put a cartoon in here? And instead of writing a column, I'll just draw a cartoon and that'll be my spot. And he said, sure. And so that was my first start of drawing comics. And I started posting these about 5 or 6 years ago to Instagram and Facebook, and people have liked it and shared it enough that I'm over 20,000 followers, guys. It's pretty fun. At the end of each school year, I take a collection of these comics that I've drawn, and I self-publish a book through Amazon, and I've sold like 20 copies, so it's great. Okay, but it's a lot of times it's not about here's something that I can do to make money. It's more, look what I did. I wrote a book. I can put that on my shelf, and I can look at that and say, you accomplished something. But a lot of the inspiration that I get comes from my students, because my 8th grade students are hilarious. They do weird and quirky things, and I draw that down, and then people laugh about it. Let's see, like that one right in the middle, that was a conversation that I had with a kid like 3 weeks ago. Jimmy, dude, why are you on the floor? Get up. I'm practicing for my future career as a speed bump. Yeah, actual conversation, okay? Hey, soda's bad for your health. Yeah, so is being a pest. Okay? So I draw cartoons because I put them on Instagram and people share that. I've been asked by a couple of newspapers across the country that have asked me to put my comics in their newspaper. So I've got, I'm a regular feature here in the Stampede Messenger, but I've got one in Brooklyn. I've never been there, but I'd like to go someday. And I'm up at the Utah State newspaper. I might be getting into the Snow College newspaper pretty soon. I can get back into my roots, but it's been pretty fun. So I don't do it a lot for the money, but painting the murals, what it's allowed me to do is to be debt-free. Both my wife and I graduated with our bachelors. I received 2 master's degrees after that, And I paid for those master's degrees without getting out any student loans, but I paid for it by painting murals around town. Okay? So if you like to do something, do it. And if people like it, they will ask you to do it. Okay? But you have to have the good quality so that people will actually come and want to come and talk to you. Okay? So, live your dream.
Great, thank you so much. We appreciate this. We have time for a couple questions from you guys. So who's got a question? Okay, I have a question. I think I want to start with Doug on this one. You said, you transitioned from being an illustrator, commercial artist, to a fine artist. And what tools did you use? Did you just say, I'm going to start painting paintings and hopefully someone's going to see them? Or where did you put those paintings? What sort of tools do you use so that people know? There's a guy named Doug Fryer who sells paintings now, and he's not a commercial artist.
Right. Let me see if I can explain it in terms that could be applied to, just anything, I guess. Is this thing on? Yeah. Okay. As a commercial artist, one of the reasons I went into into illustration, I worked as an illustrator and as a graphic designer. I was in New York City for a couple of years, working as a graphic designer, and it was great. I mean, I got good pay. I was working on projects that were really great. I was working for a guy that did all of the print ads for Giorgio Armani and Emporio Armani and Evan Picone and Jaeger and Anne Klein and all of these great designers, and it was wonderful. I had a lot of money and I was living in New York City. I was also doing illustration, but I really just wanted to paint pictures, When I was this tall, I just wanted to make pictures all day. So it was when I was living in New York City, I thought, there's something more. It's not just about, making money. So that started my dream. And like with anything, with pursuing your dreams, it takes a huge leap of faith. And I think it's only when you take that leap of faith and really being an entrepreneur it equals risk.
Right.
More than normal amounts of risk, right? And so it's risky to be brave enough, like Joe said, to be yourself. And so that transition started with this feeling. I think there's something more I want to do with my days, the hours of my days. So I had to, in order to be that person, like I said in my example, there's plenty of room at the top. You have to excel. You have to be unique. And so I started that journey in trying to be, unique. And that included getting the education. So I went back, I got a master's degree, right? Well, I had an agent still that was getting me commercial work, and I was making pretty decent money. But what was happening was I would get these assignments, do this book cover, do this advertising illustration, whatever it was. And I found myself saying, why can't they just give me the money? Do I really have to make this art? Do I really have to do it? Can't they just send me the check? And I realized that my dreams were being left behind. I didn't want to make art. How is that, being an artist and not wanting to do it? So I started to make my goals happen. I scheduled shows. Okay. I started to get my work into shows where they could be seen. I got into a gallery. Other galleries saw my work in those galleries. So a gallery in Seattle saw my work in a show in Park City. I got into that gallery. There's a gallery in Santa Fe that saw my work there. So all of a sudden, I've got 4 or 5 different galleries that are showing my work, and I'm selling. And I finally called my rep, and I said, I think I'm going to take the leap of faith. I have enough income from this other thing, which I really want to do, so I think I'm just going to do it. And it's worked out really great for the last, 18 years. Of course, just 1 second?
Okay, we do have to end, so if anyone needs to leave to get to their next class, you guys are welcome to go. But I need to respect their time. But
Okay. The last thing I was going to say is making that transition also required me to form a business where I had to put on the hat of being a business owner. So I have to look at what my costs are, operating costs, what my indirect costs are, what my direct costs are, how much profit do I have. All of those things get balanced as you even as an artist making a business.
yeah. Thanks, Doug. Well, let's have one more round of applause for our panel today. And I think these guys will stick around for a minute if you want to come ask them any questions. Thanks.